It's Tuesday night, October 21st, 2025. So we're not running as late as we have been lately. You're only a day behind schedule rather than like several. But regardless of all that, that means it's time for the Knee Jerks podcast with Eno, Nick, and Big Al. I am the Big Al of the equation, Al Beaton, longtime Detroit-based podcaster, blogger, whatever. I'm pretty much a podcaster at this point. Uh, our normal co-host Greg Eno was on vacation this week, so we'll get into that a little bit. So we do have a guest jerk with us this week, but before we get to our guest, let me get to our other regular, and that's our West Coast correspondent, Nick Milanovich. Nick, how are things in Seattle? I'm sure that they got to be extremely upset after what happened against the Blue Jays last night.
Well, I haven't noticed too much overall. It's weird. Seattle fans are kind of an odd duck for me because having grown up in Michigan, like when your team loses, you're pissed.
Yeah,
I happen to get stuck on a bus coming home, and it would go past the stadium after Game 4 of this last series, and one Toronto Blue Jays fan on there, the bus full of Mariners fans that just watched their team lose, and honestly, I think if it were Detroit, the Toronto fan would have gotten killed, but they certainly would have gotten killed on the East Coast. But over here, no. It was just like, guys, get pissed off a little bit. Trash talk the Blue Jays fan in a benign way. Like, come on, please. So I don't get it. I just don't get these people here. 20 years out here, and I don't understand them.
And you probably never will. You're a Midwesterner at heart.
Oh yeah, I mean we would be in such a foul mood after something like that. So.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I was. Well, trust me, I was not happy. Actually, after that Game 5 loss against the Mariners and the ALDS, I think actually I was more exhausted and angry, just because that game went for so goddamn long. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, that was like a sports hangover after that game. Jeez.
No kidding, man. We'll talk about that a little. We have lots to talk about. But before we get to all that, we have our special guest, our replacement jerk. Greg recommended him to replace him on the show this week. He is a Canadian. He's from up north, even further north. Well, actually, I'm way up north than you. You're closer to Toronto. I'm up near the UP here. But regardless of all that, we have a Canadian with us. His name's Chris Pomay. He is a podcaster, a broadcaster based out of Ontario. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, and also, before we even get started, tell them about your shows and your podcasts. I know you do multiple things.
Yes, my name is Chris Pomay. I am self-taught at the age of 53 into radio and media, and I have 3 shows. My main one is live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, which is a sports entertainment talk show, completely diverse with topics and guests. Then I have the Argo Bounce podcast show, which is a once-a-week Toronto Argonauts podcast where I do a show with a younger co-host. And then I have a third show where I do once a month with a cartoon, a person from the animation cartoon industry from Los Angeles. Her name is Marlene Sharp. So we interview people from the entertainment industry out in the Los Angeles, California area as well. And I'm the owner and founder of CDP Media Productions. And I do freelance media work for the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Buffalo Bisons, the top farm team of the Blue Jays, and the Buffalo Bandits of the National Lacrosse League.
Damn. Right on. you have your fingers in a lot of pies there.
I love it.
Time for us.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I do about 4 or 5 shows a week, but you know what? It's not work when you have a passion for it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And before we get into like I said, we won't do any. We don't have to do any of Greg's stuff because like he's the king of the birthday game. That's his thing. So we'll kind of get right into what we wanted to talk about. But before we started recording, I had no idea this happened. I wanted to bring this up right away with Chris, since you're so deeply into the CFL. He was telling me, especially that there's rules changes coming up that blew our minds, because when growing up in a border city, near Detroit, I got to see a lot of the CFL. For years, I always said the Grey Cup was a better game than the Super Bowl, and it really was for a very long time. It was such an entertaining game. So I grew up watching two Rough Rider teams and things like that. But Chris was telling me that they were making some major rule changes in the CFL that is going to make it more like American football. And if you ask me, that is a mistake, because I love the CFL's distinct Canadianness, if you know what I'm saying. So, Chris, tell us, our podcast listeners, what exactly rule changes are going to make, because it was a big deal what you were just telling me.
Yes, they're going to cut the field from 110 yards down to 100, so the 55-yard line is going to go. The end zones in the CFL are 20 yards compared to the NFL's 10. They're going to cut the end zones down to 15 yards, which is still bigger than the NFL's. The goalpost, which the NFL used to have goalposts at the beginning of the goal lines, until 78. The goalposts are now going to the back of the end zone. The 20-second play clock is now going to 35-second play clock. And one change, minor change, the benches, both teams are usually on the same side of the field. They're changing that as well, which isn't a big deal. I think that's actually smart. But the biggest change rules is the play clock going from 20 to 35, and they're diminishing the field by 10 yards to be a 100-yard field. But they're not changing the 3 downs, the man in motion, and the width of the field is still going to be 65 yards compared to the NFL's 53. But Canadians, a lot of the fans here are loyal to the product, and I would say over half the fans here are not happy with these changes.
Yeah, and that also, you would say, that affects the Rouge, the 1-point play, which you might have to explain to some people that aren't familiar with that.
Teams would get a point if they missed a field goal. If you missed a field goal and it didn't hit the goalposts and the team didn't take it out of the end zone, you get a Rouge. Or teams could punt the ball in the end zone, and if it goes out of bounds, they get a point. So the Rouge will still exist, but it's going to be more difficult to get the get.
Because that's a big part of the strategy of the game. Really was. That 1 point made a big difference at times. And
one thing I'm going to miss about the CFL is when teams miss field goals, a lot of guys would take the ball back and return it for touchdowns or 40, 50-yard returns. To me, the missed field goal returns are one of the most exciting plays in the Canadian Football League. But the good news is they're not going to that dynamic kickoff rule like the NFL is. So special teams is still going to be pretty well the same, except for the kicking game. The punters and the field goal kickers are going to be affected by the most by these changes.
Damn, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
That sounds like more fun than some of the NFL stuff.
And they do use microchip footballs here like the NFL does. So when fans get footballs here, they make them give them back, because these microchip footballs, they're worth like $700 footballs and stuff like that. So, but over here in Canada right now, a lot of CFL fans are not happy with these changes, and they don't like the fact that the commissioner, who I've talked to, he's a nice guy, Stuart Johnson, made these changes without really talking to the GMs and the coaches. Obviously, he obviously talked to the owners of the 9 teams. So they feel this is going to get more of the younger generation to get involved with the CFL right now.
I'm disappointed. I don't know how familiar you are with the CFL, Nick, but I watched a fair amount of it. Especially the Lions were so bad when I was a kid. so a lot of times especially the season starting early, the way it does in Canada, where you can watch football in the summer here. And so I was exposed to some of that, what some people would consider bizarre football, but it's a very entertaining and fast-paced version of the game, especially as you mentioned with the 3 downs. And the allowing to have the man in motion before the snap and then running forward before the snap. So it's the reasoning they're giving for they're making these changes to make it more like American football.
I guess because 7 out of the 9 teams are not making money, and they want to try to get younger people involved. And also, I have my suspicions. This is my theory. Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, who owns the Toronto Argonauts, they own the Blue Jays, the Raptors, the FC. They control pretty well all the sports teams there. They just entered into a partnership with the NFL's Buffalo Bills to cross promote the Bills and Argos and try to get more Argo fans to become Bills fans and Bill fans to become Argos. I'm pretty convinced that they probably had a little bit of say in this as well, because the Argonauts are they used to be the number one draw in Toronto behind the Maple Leafs. But now with the Blue Jays, the Toronto FC, the Toronto Raptors, and Toronto's now getting a WNBA team, the Argos are kind of lost in Toronto right now in the scene, because there's so many things to do in Toronto, and the Argos the market is, they're only averaging 15,000 fans a game, and they play in a beautiful stadium called BMO Field, and they're the only team in the CFL that has a grass surface as well. And I love the CFL product. I love it for what it is, but unfortunately the league's decided in 2026 and 2027 to make these changes, which are going to affect university and high school football here too. They're going to have to change. They're going to have to make changes as well, and it's going to cost them a lot of money to change the fields and all this stuff too. So right now it's a hot topic here in Canada with the CFL changes and stuff like that too. I have a lot of American friends that like the CFL for what it is, but unfortunately they want to make some of these changes. But I'm just glad they didn't get rid of the 3 downs or the man in motion stuff like that. But I don't know. The goalposts, I guess I could see that happening. I guess because there's been a few balls that have hit the goalpost, but I haven't seen that many games being decided by it. I like it for what it is. It's just like the NFL. It's like, unfortunately, they decided to make the changes, and they're hearing about it right now. But the only good news is it is getting the CFL a lot of exposure and a lot of attention right now. By the way, right now on the CFL, you can watch the games on CBS Sports Network.
Right.
And they brought the games back to CTV. So if you're in a border city like Detroit, you should be able to watch on CTV Windsor as well.
I'm wondering
if so disappointed in the CFL. I am so disappointed.
I wonder if it's an opportunity to try and attract number one American fans who are more used to American football, or the other part is kind of like a gradual transition to American football to eventually be absorbed into the NFL in an expansion.
That's a possibility too. They did try expansion in the United States back in the 90s, and it was a big failure. The only team that actually was successful was the Baltimore Stallions. They won the Grey Cup. They're the only American team to win the Grey Cup, and then they left town and moved back to Montreal, and then the Baltimore Ravens came in. As soon as the Baltimore Ravens came in, the Stallions were done. So I don't know if that's their overall plans, but it's just, the next 2 years is going to be very interesting in the CFL. So some season ticket holders are threatening to cancel their season tickets over this. A lot of people are disappointed about it. That's
too bad. It sounds like an interesting variation on American football. So.
I'm trying to keep an open mind to it. The CFL has been around since 1958, and they still have 9 teams. And it would be nice to see them get to a 12-team league, because right now they have 2 divisions. The West Division has 5 teams. The East Division has 4. It would be nice to get rid of the divisions and eventually get 12 teams. They've been talking about expansion in the CFL since 1984, and it just hasn't happened except for that U.S. experiment, and it didn't go really well.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's I find it fascinating because I love the CFL for what it is, and always knew what it was. So, God damn it! Now you've just ruined my day, Chris. I'm sorry, but
hey, by the way, guys, you can watch the games live stream on CFL Plus. If you have CFL Plus, you can watch them live stream on free on CFL Plus or CBS Sports Network.
Right, cool.
That's right, because you got up there. You got to be getting late in the season, aren't you? At this point.
Yeah, actually, they got 1 week left of the regular season, which is coming up this weekend, and then the playoffs start next weekend. And the CFL's Grey Cup, the 111th Grey Cup Championship, will take place Sunday, November 16th at 6:00 Eastern from Princess Auto Stadium in Winnipeg, which is a nice 35,000 seat stadium in Winnipeg, which is brand new, and it's a beautiful facility. So right now, it would look like it would be right now if the Grey Cup would be played. I would say Saskatchewan out of the West, the Rough Riders,
Yeah.
would take on probably Hamilton or Montreal. But in the CFL, only 6 out of the
Mhm.
9 teams make the playoffs. But right now, all 6 teams have a good chance. That 6 teams that have made it in the playoffs have a really good chance of winning the Grey Cup. So there's parity in the CFL right now.
That is awesome. That is at least the very least. I got to make the point to watch the Grey Cup now, because that could be the last CFL game as we at least
Know it.
last very Canadian CFL game as we know it.
Yeah, and I'm not happy about the 35-second play clock because in the
Yeah.
CFL, when we get to the 3-minute warning instead of you guys have the 2-minute warning, in the
Mhm.
NFL, if you got no timeouts left and it's a 2-minute warning, you're pretty well toast. In the CFL, even if you have no timeouts with 3 minutes left, you have a chance to win a game with no time left on the clock. So
Yeah.
changing the play clock to 20 seconds to 35 seconds, that's the one I really don't like the most. If I had to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it'll drag the game out too.
Yep.
Overall.
Yep. So the next 2 years here in the CFL is going to be very interesting, especially in universities and high schools too. Are they going to switch with the CFL or not? Because high schools and universities are also a big feeder league here as well to the CFL.
Yeah, I would have forgotten completely about the domino effect, as you said, from high school and college ball there. So
So,
that's a
and
big deal.
And I was lucky enough to ask the CFL commissioner, that Stuart Johnson, and he answered my question, and he basically said, we don't expect them to change, but these schools and high schools, they develop a lot of players for the CFL.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to at some point. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and people who I'm sure they do aspire to play in the CFL, they're going to want to learn how to play by the current rules of the game. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and a lot of American players come over here and they love the CFL. They absolutely love it. And like Joe Theismann played in the CFL,
Yeah.
Warren Moon, Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie was in Toronto. He still loves the CFL because the CFL saved his career before he went back to Buffalo in the NFL. So, and I tell people, you can love the NFL, you can love the CFL. The CFL season starts much earlier than the NFL season and ends in November. So it crosses over. It's not like the CFL follows the NFL. And there's things about the NFL I like better than the CFL, but there's things about the CFL I like better than the NFL. And it's just, I'm trying to keep an open mind as freelance media. So I'm hoping these changes will be positive, but I really don't like the 35-second play clock because in the NFL, if you run out of timeouts, the last 2 minutes basically is nail down victory formation.
Yeah, as we saw on Monday Night Football with the Lions. Once they hit the 2-minute warning, they were able to essentially kneel out the rest of the game. Exactly.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to have to change my show now. We've talked about the CFL for 20 minutes.
I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about the league, and I'm just very grateful to the league. They gave me my media opportunities 4 years ago. I didn't go to school for this. I've been self-taught and just reach out for opportunities, and I've been really thankful for the CFL and the NFL gave me an opportunity to cover the draft in Detroit a couple years ago too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we just discussed this a little bit just before we started recording, because I had no idea that the CFL was making changes. So that is fascinating to me. So, all right.
So just go ahead.
Right. With that, let's move on to some of the topics. We might as well stay with football since we've been talking CFL. Let's move on to the NFL, specifically the Lions, who had a very. It's funny how they won by 2 scores, but it felt like a very tense game. I guess because people, I guess it's the. It had a lot to do with the defense for one. So, but regardless of all that, I think people were expecting a high-scoring game last night, and instead they got kind of a defensive slugfest where the Lions won 24-9, held the Buccaneers under control with a defense now they're calling the Legion of Boom, because the defensive backfield was essentially made up of career backups and recent waiver wire and practice squad pickups, which no one saw coming that they would be able to play that well and hold Baker Mayfield to essentially 50% passing and a little over 200 yards. So now the Lions have hit the hit the bye week, which they really do need because they are desperately banged up, as we know, in the defensive backfield. Well, obviously they're missing one safety because of a suspension, which we can discuss a little bit. But they were also missing Kirby Joseph due to injury, Terry and Arnold due to injury, DJ Reed due to injury. They're really banged up back there. They had no starters back there, yet they had a very impressive defensive performance last night, Nick. So, and now we're at the bye. The Lions are 5-2, and they are looking like a damn good team, even though felt kind of like a stressful game. Realistically, the Lions weren't really in that much danger for the most part. They had a 2-score lead almost the entire game.
So I'll have to confess that I was during the game, I was on a bus to go to some thing about AI and vibe coding, which even after being there, I don't know what the fuck that is. And,
let's talk about AI instead. We talked.
No. I was in an industry where AI meant adult incontinence, and it's like it might as well be the same thing right now. But so I was only like watching on like Yahoo, like the updates in there. What I think though, my impression though,
talk about the game specifically, but we're at the bye and looking pretty good.
They're looking really good. You know what I think is was a little different. First of all, the defense was coming up big.
Yeah,
and holding a Tampa Bay offense to 9 points. Tampa Bay is a good team. I mean, what are they, 5-2 now?
People are forgetting that. They're
a good team
in that game.
Exactly.
They gave the Eagles they could handle a couple weeks ago in Tampa Bay, but I think that was also due to the heat down in Tampa Bay, the Bucs. But I really feel the Bucs are still a contender in the NFC, and I thought the Lions they played a good game. I think personally, I'm not a Lions fan. I'm obviously an Eagles fan, but covering the NFL, I thought it was important for the Lions to bounce back because they did have that disappointing loss to Kansas City. So I think it was important to ride the ship, and you got to give their defensive coordinator Shepard a lot of credit too for getting these guys ready to play.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is like we're so used to the Lions offense being this high-powered offense scoring nearly like 40 points a game. And 21 of their 24 points were scored in the first half.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like one field goal. And okay, Goff threw a pick. The running was good. It was not good. It was not this like high-powered like offense that we're used to, basically.
Yeah, it was Jahmyr Gibbs essentially.
I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is one like really long run, and then a couple other decent ones. Was most of it, right? And not to take away from the other guys, but it wasn't like it was these gaudy numbers like it.
Yeah, Gibbs had a Saquon Barkley type performance, 186 yards rushing, and I think another 82 yards receiving. And I looked at Montgomery's stats. I like David Montgomery too because Gibbs is kind of the finesse speed guy, and Montgomery's the power guy. Montgomery did have 13 carries, but only 21 yards. But Jahmyr Gibbs was their number one player last night. I know St. Brown had a good game with 86 yards, but Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the top 3 running backs in the National Football League, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind about those Montgomery stats is he was getting the ball when the Bucs knew all the Lions were going to do was hand the ball off and try to run the clock. So, and trying to run against a guy like Vita Vea, I mean, that guy's a mountain in the inside. So, but regardless of that, it's essentially Goff had one of I would call it a goof game as they call him, but Goff had a he was okay, but he wasn't anything deep, and but Gibbs was electric, to say the very least. But really, the game really came down to was the Lions' defense being able to put the clamps on Baker Mayfield. But I think they had 5 sacks. They had a ton of pass breakups.
Pressure on him. And that's how you beat Baker Mayfield. That's how you beat him. Yeah.
Yeah, Aleem McNeil coming back made a huge difference. First couple plays, he's bull rushing guys right into Mayfield and caused them to bail out the pocket. It makes a big difference with the Lions defense when you got Aleem McNeil in the middle.
Well, they're also like they keep doing those punch outs on,
Yes.
and it's paying off. It's no joke. I know they had one turnover that way, but they might have had more than one in this game too.
Yeah, well, Baker Mayfield got stripped like that as well, but they were able to recover. But exactly.
And that's what the Eagles did last year in their Super Bowl run. Their defense, a lot of times they would punch that football out, and that is huge. So this Lions team kind of reminds me a little bit about last year's Eagles team. And you know what? You're not always going to score 40, 50 points a game in the National Football League. Tampa Bay, even though they didn't have their best game last night, they still were in it. Their defense kept them in it. And the main thing at the end of the night is to win. It's better to win ugly than to lose pretty. And that's how I look at it.
That's the thing. I think people tend to forget it's not college football, and every win in the NFL is tough. It's not easy to get a win, even if you're home. No matter who you're playing, a win in the NFL, it's not an easy thing to get. And thinking that they're going to put up points like a college team, it's absolutely ridiculous. Nick, we were talking a little bit about this before you logged on. Is that how we can get frustrated with fans who think, but something's wrong when they're not scoring 40 points a game and shutting the other team out, making all their field goals and not making mistakes? Because Chris is saying the same thing that Eagles fans are kind of going through with a lot of that stuff right now as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's more comforting when your team is blowing out the opponent versus squeaking out a game. But what you notice is, like, for really good teams, they win no matter how the game is played, no matter what the score is, they're on the winning side of it. They recover from their stupid mistakes, which everyone makes. They can fight out through a tight game where, low scoring game. They still, just have enough of an edge. All you need is one more point than the other guy to win. So who cares? If it's 40 or if it's 1. So.
And that's a big game, too, because obviously they're not in the same division, Tampa Bay and Detroit anymore. But that is a conference win, too. So that's huge because the Lions obviously would like to try to get that number 1 seed again. And that is a huge win against Tampa Bay. So if they have a tiebreaker and have the same record, Detroit will have that advantage over Tampa Bay. So this game, I might want to bookmark the rest of the year at the end of the season.
Yeah, because the NFC looks loaded. The Lions are 5-2 and they're number 6. They're right now they're the 6th seed in the NFC.
Same record as the Eagles, 5-2, and then you got a whole bunch of teams up there. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this too. My two biggest surprises this year are Denver and New England out of the AFC, and in the NFC. I would say the biggest disappointment so far would be the Washington Commanders. I don't think they're going to be as successful as they were last year.
Well, if that's for a surprise, I'd go with the Colts and the Bears.
You could throw them in too, yeah. Colts and Bears.
I mean, I can see the Bears being 4-2 right now, and the Colts only having 1 loss. But then again, the Colts are in the AFC, and the AFC does not look nearly as good as the NFC right now. That's for sure.
I'm actually kind of liking Seattle a little bit myself.
5-2, yeah. Got to talk about them too.
Everybody's 5-2.
The Niners, the 49ers, a banged up Niners team is 5-2 too. Nobody's really talking about the Niners, so that's a team I wouldn't sleep on.
No. And who else is going in there? Well, if I look at the NFC West, 3 of the 4 teams are all 5-2.
Yeah. The Los Angeles Rams, to me, are the team that I'm most worried about because I know the Eagles beat them, but it wasn't really you don't normally block 2 field goals to win a game. So to me, the LA Rams are one of the most dangerous teams in the NFC, in my opinion, besides the Lions and the Eagles.
Well, when you have Stafford, you're always dangerous, as we saw for years here in Detroit. But speaking of the Eagles, I mean, there was a lot of controversy with Philadelphia, especially when they were. Are they still considered struggling on offense right now?
The running game is because their offensive line has been banged up. Center Cam Jordans, who took over for Jason Kelsey a couple years ago, he's been hurt. He's had hernia surgery. He's had knee injury. Landon Dickerson, a big offensive lineman, he's been hurt in and out. So they've had some key injuries to their offensive line, and Saquon Barkley just hasn't been able to get going. I don't think he's on the decline, but I knew he wasn't going to get 2,000 yards again rushing. So the rushing game, they haven't found it this year, but their passing game, they found. Jalen Hurts had a perfect rating against Minnesota. Minnesota came into that game with the number one passing defense in the league, and Jalen Hurts, 19 for 23, 326 passing, 3 touchdowns, and A.J. Brown, 2 catches for 121 yards, Devontae Smith, 186 yards. Everybody in Philly wants the Eagles to be a run-first team like they were last year, but teams in the NFL are not going to let the Eagles do what they did last year and run for 2,600 yards rushing. They're trying to take away the Eagles' running game, and Jalen Hurts is a legitimate deep ball thrower. He's a top 5 quarterback, and I think the win against Minnesota is huge. Obviously, I would like to see Barkley in the running game get going more, but if they can get that running game more going at some point, they're going to be more dangerous. But they did bring back Michigan alumni Brandon Graham. Graham just resigned. So, so Brandon Graham's going to help. They did lose the Darius Smith, who they picked up from the Lions. He basically quit on the Eagles. He quit on the Eagles. He quit on the Eagles. So
it's like the Lions knew something. Who would have figured?
Yep. I agree. I totally agree. Howie Roseman, now I don't know how much money is going to count against the salary cap against the Eagles, but Howie Roseman signed him to a 1-year deal with $9 million. So I don't know how much more they have to pay of him since he decided to quit, retire on his own.
Yeah, but it's definitely going to do something to the cap. It could hurt them if they need to have injury replacements and things like that. I mean, we saw that with Detroit last year. And one of the reasons why they didn't want to pay Smith that big money, because they wanted to keep money aside for emergencies, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's shocking. Brad Holmes kind of knew something. It's shocking. And while we're on the NFL, this is something else that Greg pointed out to us today. When our little text thing. Did you hear, Chris? Did you hear about what the Jets owner said about his quarterback today?
Oh God!
No, I missed that. They are a dysfunctional franchise.
God. Woody Johnson here. It's hard when you have a quarterback with the rating that we've got. If you look at any head coach with a quarterback like that, you're going to see similar results. If we can just complete a pass, it would look good. He's saying that about his starting quarterback, Justin Fields.
Well, what a piece of
for throwing his quarterback under the bus like that.
Just like they got rid of Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is doing okay with Pittsburgh. So,
as much as I don't like Rodgers, he's doing fine in Pittsburgh. You're right. He's been an upgrade for them.
I'm going to be honest with you too. The New York Jets made a mistake firing Robert Saleh. That was a mistake, and now. Glenn, I think Glenn's going to regret taking that job as the Jets head coach. I expect Glenn to be fired. Oh, since we're talking about coaches, who do you think will be fired first? Glenn with the Jets or Mike McDaniel in Miami, who's a disaster there?
I think Miami's head coach is gone. He's the dead coach. Well, there's one. I think he would go first. I think at the very least, Glenn might get a little grace because it's his first year. And I think the Jets hired him thinking we have a leader of men, Dan Campbell type. And if you look at Dan Campbell's record when he first started, he was like 0-10-1 or something like that before he finally
won a game. I mean,
before he won a game, and then the next year he started I think 1-6, and then here we are. He caught fire halfway through his second year, and it hasn't stopped. So So Glenn might have I think he might have a little more runway.
I would say Glenn will stick around. The guy in Miami, he looks stoned every time he's up in front of – he literally looks stoned. Like he just like, I don't know, like he's like hiding his bong behind him because he's like I'm surprised he's still there. But,
he's lost the locker room, in my opinion.
Probably because he's stoned. He can't find it, literally. And But for the Jets, I think Glenn has a little time. However, I think the Jets is a shit show. And if there's anything Detroit Lions fans know about, is a trust fund baby owner with lousy judgment in football. So you can smell that like several hundred miles away. And so Glenn will be there. He's going to bang his head against the wall with these guys. And maybe he does something, maybe he doesn't. But if that owner is still like shooting his mouth off the way he is, I think he's going to undermine his own team. So
I can't believe an owner would do that. Just still throwing your quarterback under the bus like that. That is horrible.
It's awful.
That's the sort of thing you say off the record, or you say behind closed doors. You don't say that to the damn media. I mean, that's literally. If anything, it may give the locker room a rallying cry. Anyway, it might be. That might end up being a positive in that way. But that's the only thing I can think positive coming of this is that it gives the locker room a rally cry to rally behind their quarterback. But otherwise, this is why owners should not talk for the most part. It's ridiculous.
I feel bad for Fields because he was drafted by Chicago, which was a shit show.
Yeah,
when
he's
he got drafted.
Shit show to shit show. You're right.
Exactly. He had one bad year in Pittsburgh, but even that's kind of a quarterback mess, really.
Yeah.
But they seem to have figured it out with Aaron Rodgers. But the only problem with Aaron Rodgers, he's one injury from being done, and he's short term is okay for them, but long term the Steelers need to develop a franchise quarterback, just like the Jets. The Jets go through quarterbacks left, right, and center, and Miami too. Tulo is Tulo the long term solution for the Miami Dolphins?
Maybe he's stoned too.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the Jets, is it the every quarterback they draft leave and then do well somewhere else? Like Darno is
with Seattle.
Yeah, and he did well last year in Minnesota, and so maybe it's not him.
It's like the city of New York, or I should say New Jersey, at the state of New Jersey at this point, is where quarterbacks go to die. Because look at Daniel Jones in Indianapolis now.
Yep.
It's like, both those franchises are just wandering in the woods trying to figure things out. Especially, as Greg says, the Jets are the same old Lions, the way the Lions were for decades. They're the same type of franchise.
Mm-hmm. Got to ask you these guys: will the Jets be the third team to join the Lions and Browns as winless? I say yes.
They could.
I could see it happening. I could definitely see it happening.
I could see the losing mentality take such deep root in their heads that it's almost inevitable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Then that's what Glenn would really. That's when you wonder would they keep him for another year after that if they do go winless. That would be a tough ask in that market to keep a coach that goes winless in New York.
Do you feel, both of you guys feel like Glenn can be a good head coach in this league? Because you've seen Josh McDaniels, a great offensive coordinator, fail a couple of times. Sometimes these offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators just don't make good head coaches as well.
So that's possible. McDaniels is a jerk.
Yeah.
He's a jerk, but he's a very good offensive coordinator.
Yeah, but any further than that, he's been a disaster. It's hard to tell with Glenn. Like, say if he fails there, some coaches take maybe like one or two stints before they catch fire. Pete Carroll was that way. He was in a lousy record in New England and even the Jets. I think he coached the Jets for a little bit.
Yep. And Belichick was awful in Cleveland. Not awful, but he was mediocre at best.
Yep.
Well, he was awful without Brady anywhere. So
which we are now learning as we're seeing that shit show going on in North Carolina now.
But the problem with Glenn is if that's your first head coaching stint, it's almost like a death wish.
Just like Robert Saleh. Now he's back with the Niners as their offense or defensive coordinator.
Think about all the Lions head coaches that never got another head coaching position ever again. I mean, the list is huge. The only one I could see that might end up as a head coach again might be Jim Schwartz
in Cleveland.
That's the one I was going to say as well.
Campbell will get a job like that if that ever happened. But the other guys, Jim Caldwell, he was on the cusp of getting some jobs, but never did. But nobody else. I mean, literally. I mean, Rod Marinelli would never have ever gotten another head coaching job because he finished 0-16.
0-16, exactly. And he ended up rising to his level, which was corner, because he got hired as a Lions head coach. I don't even think he'd ever been a coordinator, if I remember. He was he was like an offensive line coach or whatever.
No, defensive line.
Yeah, because he kept talking about pad level, which drove me batty. But
from the head coach, so
yeah.
It all starts. To me, it all starts with ownership, hiring the right football players, the roster. Like the Lions and the Eagles, after they won their Super Bowl, they fired Doug Peterson, and they had some changes with the roster. Then they hired Nick Sirianni. The expectations were low, and Nick kind of won in his first year. The Lions, I remember when they hired Dan Campbell, people were like, "This guy's a meathead, can't stand him. He's another disaster."
Greg Eno right there.
Yeah. Hi, Greg, by the way. But the day I believe the day the Detroit Lions franchise was changed, it wasn't just because of Dan Campbell. It was the day when Sheila Hamp Ford took over that organization, and they went out and hired Brad Holmes, who hired Dan Campbell. So I really think it all starts with the ownership. The putting Sheila in as the owner has really turned this Lions franchise around, in my opinion.
Oh, it's without a doubt. You know, we had put up with William Clay Ford for decades, and he just went. I mean, he was the man. William Clay Ford is the man who decided that Matt Millen got a contract extension back in the day. I mean, that said volumes right there. Where he just wanted to be buddies with his coaches and general managers, and he could not be the bad guy. Essentially, he just could not. You know, oh God, we go into Lions history and it'd be very, very ugly, but it all really comes down to, as you say, awful ownership in William Clay Ford. You know, he was a Nepo baby himself, you know, William. So, but
and as for the Eagles, for the Eagles, for many years, the Eagles were a mess too, until Jeffrey Lurie took over the team in 1994. He actually saved the franchise from moving to Phoenix. But since he's taken over as the owner of the Eagles the last 30 years, he's hired Andy Reid. He's hired Nick Sirianni, Doug Peterson. They've gone to 4 Super Bowls under Jeff Lurie and won 2 Super Bowls. So the Eagles franchise turned a corner 30 years ago with the right ownership. And to any sports team, by the way, since we're talking about ownerships, Detroit Tigers, they need to get an owner and proper management in there, because this team had a chance to do something in the playoffs, and Chris Ilitch and Scott Harris, they let down the fan base and this roster by doing nothing. I know that's another subject in a rant, but it really all starts in pro sports, letting the owner pay the bills, hiring the right people to run the team, and the right coaching staff.
And to get out of the way.
Yeah, basically, that's my rant.
You're preaching to the choir, especially when it comes to Nick. Nick feels the same exact way.
Oh, God. Yeah, you're going to get me started, because from the day Harris was hired, I said, this is bad. This is going to be a bad move.
He's a yes man.
So I've worked in industry in many different companies, and he reminds me of the slightly above average, director that gets brought in, the sort of rising star kind of guy who's maybe slightly above average intelligence, but knows how to sweet talk the bosses and just doesn't do anything. And I just feel like that's him. Like, even this thing where people say, oh, he's great for the development and the lead, the development of the young guys in the farm system. Like, how can you tell? Who has he developed? All the guys that are brought up was during the Avila days. Maybe he had a little hand in it, maybe a year before these guys were brought up, or 2. But what has he done so far? Nothing. He's brought in more analytics. So what? So he's updated the Tigers.
They're basically going to end up like the Oakland A's. They'll have teams. There'll be teams that are competitive, make the playoffs, maybe win a division title, but long-term success, they're not going anywhere. Look at the Toronto Blue Jays. Last year, they were in last place in the AL East. This year, they weren't even expected to compete for the division or get to the World Series. And with their farm system and adding Matt Scheisser, the former Tiger pitcher, Shane Beaver, getting Miles Straw, some guys from the Cleveland Guardians, and also having Vlad Guerrero Jr. But the Toronto Blue Jays,
they paid Vlad as well.
They paid him $500 million for 14 years. But
which
the
is
Blue
going to be a
Jays,
hot topic in Detroit when it comes to school ball.
Yep.
So,
but the Blue Jays turned it around in less than a year, and the Harris and the Tigers are like, oh, it takes years and years. That's nonsense. Look how fast the Blue Jays turned it around.
You know, my claim is like,
too, so
yeah. Well, my claim with you know he's the Pobo whatever, but I'm just going to call him GM for argument's sake, because I don't know what that tail of his Greenberg even does. So
figurehead.
Well, more like a tail, but he's at that end. But like Harris's job is to put out a winning Tigers team. To do everything he can to make the Detroit Tigers successful. Fuck the farm system. He should be doing this for the Tigers any way possible. It doesn't have to be let's grow them slowly, homegrown. This bullshit barely ever works anywhere. Just like you're saying, like you can turn this around pretty quickly. Shit, Mike Ilitch turned around the Tigers pretty quickly. I mean, they were a dumpster fire. Then suddenly, you know, after that 2003 season, 3 years later, they're in the World Series.
Yeah.
You know, get rid of Alan Trammell, put in a good manager, bring in some free agents that can hit, or Ordonez. He had Rodriguez. They traded for Polanco and Carlos Guillen. Yeah, exactly. They traded for these guys. Trading free agency, a couple of guys they drafted, Verlander and Granderson are the only two I can think of. And then, but, you know, they were competitive all of a sudden. So why can't Harris do that? And
well, thoughts on AJ Hinch, because during that season-ending presser, that rumored extension was confirmed by Harris. That they didn't say how long or how much, but that that Hinch has gotten another extension. That's one thing I have no arguments with. I think Hinch is the way he manages to juggle that lineup, because I think we're seeing how highly flawed that lineup is, and has managed to drag it to the playoffs 2 consecutive years. I mean, I think the driving force behind that team is really AJ Hinch.
I totally agree 100%. And I would like to see AJ to be the general manager too. I would have no problems with AJ doing both roles. But in baseball, I don't think anyone's ever done that, being the manager and the general manager.
At it, yeah.
It's been a long time since that's happened. Who, Connie Mack, maybe? Connie
Mack, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. But no, AJ Hinch is definitely not an issue with his team. But in the offseason, that they have to get some pitching arms, and they need big bats, and they also need a batting coach. Who is the Tigers' batting coach? Because this team must have led the major leagues in strikeouts last year. They just can't hit the ball.
I thought they had 3 guys dedicated to hitting.
Wow.
That they brought in.
They had a batting coach and a couple assistants. He's right. I don't remember. I have no idea who their names are.
I don't either.
Thing I've heard is that the first base coach isn't coming back, and I don't even remember what his name is either. So yeah, I mean, I feel, Chris, I sort of joke that you're talking about the A's and the whole Moneyball era. My joke is that like Harris must have read Moneyball on the flight to the interview with the Tigers. It's like it looks like Moneyball. Like, what are you looking at dumpsters for bargains? Because they do need hitting. The hitting just
and the thing with the Tigers. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No,
they act like they're a small market team. They act like they're the Pittsburgh Pirates. Even the Kansas City Royals. At least they won a World Series. It's just they act like a small market team. this payroll is one of the lowest in baseball. And look at the two teams in the World Series this year. Obviously, LA's got the highest payroll. Toronto's got the 5th highest payroll, and they got to pay their players in American dollars, and they take their income in Canadian dollars. So credit, as much as I'm not a Jays fan, credit to Rogers Communications for spending $255 million on the Blue Jays team to give themselves a chance to get to the World Series. You're not getting to the World Series with a $75-80 million payroll, in my opinion.
No, there's no way. I mean, that means you got a lot of young guys on your team. That means you got a lot of guys that probably should be in the minor leagues. One of the things I used to see, like comments about the Tigers, is this McGonigal and I don't remember the fuck the other guy's name is.
Max Clark, Max.
Oh, they're coming up next year. It's like, why would I be looking at a minor leaguer to be a savior for a team full of, seasoned major leaguers? Like, seriously, are one of these guys one of those freaks of nature like a Mike Trout would have been, or
Artande? Shohei
Right,
Artande? I don't think so.
No, not at all. It's like that. Those things are rare. You don't count on those guys. It's like when you get them, it's like, holy shit. Like
this fan base deserves better. They were getting 35,000, 40,000 a game. Detroit is a great sports city, a great baseball town. They deserve better. This World Series drought is the longest in franchise history, I believe, now at 41 years, and it just seems like every year they make excuses, and I feel like until they get a new ownership in there, and I don't believe the Illiches are going to sell the team, it's going to continue. Nothing's going to change until they get a new owner in there at some point. Chris is not like his dad, Mike, was.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I don't see the Illiches letting either the Wings or the Tigers go in anytime soon. That's the family jewels at this point with them.
Oh, for
more
sure.
so than Little Caesars, even though Little Caesars is the one that makes all the money.
Well, I mean, those franchises, no matter considering what they paid for them and what they're worth now, is like insane. What did the Tigers? He paid like $300 million for the Tigers, which seemed like a lot of money back in 1990, whatever.
92 or 93.
Paid, I remember looking it up. That's Mike Ilitch bought the Tigers for like around $60 million, something like that, because he bought them in the 90s.
92.
It was in the 90s.
I thought it was more than that, like but they're in the billions now.
Billions now. Yeah, they're worth billions now. Oh, which says William Clay Ford bought the Lions, I think, for $6 million, and they're worth multiple billions as well. It's like I said, we've talked about this before in the podcast. Where major league franchises, be it whatever pro sport, they're just licenses to print money because it allows you to do so many other things when it comes to real estate and media and all the ancillary stuff that comes along with it. I mean, you buy them and then you automatically make money because look at Tom Gores. He spent, I think, $300 million and change for the entire organization. He bought the Pistons and the Palace organization, which came with the arena and all the
there's some other venues
stuff that they do as well. Exactly, all the other venues.
Was it Pine Knob? I think.
Yeah, exactly. And billions, because what's her name? Davidson. I forgot her first name. Karen. Karen Davidson. She wanted of that so badly. She sold the Pistons for pennies on the dollar. She really did.
Oh, for sure. That was a fire sale.
It's funny, for years the Piston fans wanted Gores to sell the team, but last year they actually had a renaissance season, and now the fans have kind of forgotten about Gores, and that's going to be critical this year too. The Pistons are not going to be sneaking up on teams like they did last year, so I don't know how they're going to do this year. I'm assuming the expectations are over 500 again, and obviously to get further in the playoffs, but if they have a regression this year, you're going to hear people say, "Hey, it's time to get rid of Tom Gores again." Talk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's given him a lot of he's given a lot of ammo to use against him. I mean, other than last year, his ownership has been awful. the whole time.
Yeah. To his credit, though, he got rid of Monty Williams, and how many coaches would just say, "Here's $70 million to go away"? Well, other than Penn State, but but which is another whole can of worms we might get into if we have the time. But yeah, it's the Pistons. I'd say at this point the goalposts are continuing to move, and that you want. Even though the Jaden Ivey stuff of him hurting his knee and probably going to miss 4 weeks or more does hurt the team, Cade Cunningham does look like that franchise player that you really need to build around. The question is Ivey or Jalen Durham going to be there, be the Robin to his Batman? And that jury's still out. And I think it says volumes that the Pistons aren't sure about it either when it came out that they weren't going to give them contract extensions and were going to allow them to play out the season and become restricted free agents. So that even shows the Pistons aren't sure they have found the right guys to put next to Cade Cunningham. When they're allowing those two guys to go to – it's not that big of a deal. I mean, they will have right of first refusal. They will be able to re-sign them if they want to. But it does say volumes to say, we're going to let you prove yourselves before we decide to give you big extensions. And that makes perfect sense because both of them – Ivy has been injured and does have he's yet to really prove that he can shoot from distance. And Doran has those issues playing defense. And the fact is, he's more of a true center. He's not a stretch five, as they say. So yeah, it's obvious that the Pistons aren't sure what they have in those in their core yet.
I mean, part of it's consistency, right? I mean, just the consistency in their play.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's another thing. Yeah.
So.
How do you guys see the Pistons finishing out this year in the East? Because I feel they could finish in the top 5 in the East. That's my expectation. Top 5.
5 seed. I can see it doing the same thing. A 5 or be a 6 seed. Probably will not. I don't see them being good enough to get home court, but they are good enough they would be good enough to scare teams like they did last year. They just aren't quite to that point yet, but. I saw this with the Bad Boys. It took them pretty much a damn decade to go from building that team to actually winning multiple titles. So the Pistons to make the huge step they did last year, from 13 wins to 44 wins is absolutely amazing. But that's the hard part now to go from good to great, and that they could actually take a step back. They are a playoff team. I don't see them being a play-in team. They are a playoff team. But I could see them having a very similar season with win total in the mid-40s, and then having another and then getting knocked out in the first round again, just because I don't think they're there yet. They don't have the right guys.
The thing I do like about the Pistons is they're not playing as though they're in a rebuild mode. Any team that goes into rebuild mode, I never want to watch because they're going to play like they're in a rebuild. They won't try to win as hard as if okay, guys, now we're competing. We're going to get into the playoffs. This is our goal. And to advance in the playoffs, you're going to have a different mentality going into games. And I'm glad the Pistons are doing it. I wish the fucking Red Wings would do that for once. Yeah. Instead of this, we're planning for the future. We're looking long, crapola.
Yeah, 9 years. 9 years now.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And, shit, even the front office of the Tigers almost has that attitude. We're going to try and build for the future. You guys got into the goddamn playoffs.
Win now. Yeah, win now. Win now, because look at the Lions. They haven't won a championship since 1957. The Maple Leafs in hockey, 1967. The Guardians in baseball, 1948. Win now, because too many of these teams are we're building for the future. And it's to me, it's about winning now.
And there's no guarantee in the future. Hell, even after this season is over for any of these teams, everything resets itself. You're not going to be the same team next year. The other teams are going to be getting better. This is why we were we were talking about all the surprises in the NFL this year. And because there's a reason, right? So because the teams change, the season changes, that whatever momentum you had last year may not be there.
What you did last year, just like the Eagles last year. I don't expect them to win 18 games and be dominant like they were last year in the playoffs. It's a different year, different season. Same in baseball, and every year changes. Just like the Dodgers won the World Series last year, I still think they're going to repeat, but there's no guarantees they're going to repeat. The Jays very well could upset them, and it could happen possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, that's when you see a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. They're good year after year. I'm not a Chiefs fan, so I'm fatigued by hearing about them. But what they're doing is like a freak of nature.
It's like the Patriots' 20-year run with Belichick and Brady.
Exactly. Yep. It's just it doesn't happen. When it happens, just ride it for as long as it goes.
Absolutely, and that's why the Chiefs ownership, the Hunts, are doing a great job. They hire the right GM there, and Andy Reid's one of the best coaches in football. They have the right people in there to keep a successful culture, and I think the Lions are in the process of doing that as well. And I think the Pistons, Bickerstaff has kind of helped change that culture as well, in my opinion. And I'm hoping McClellan can do that with the Red Wings too. The Red Wings stunk opening night, and then McClellan, apparently read them the riot act, and the Red Wings have been playing good the last 5 games so far. Knock on wood.
Right.
It's small sample size stuff. I mean, we've seen the Wings have stretches like this in the past. But it's a good sign that they started off, but it's going to take a lot more than that to convince me that they're anything more than a bubble team when it comes to the playoffs. And at the very least, with McClellan, they're actually bringing up some kids saying, well, they've outplayed these veterans. I want to play these guys, which is a big change from what we've seen from the last 2 head coaches they've had there. They had 3 rookies in the opening day lineup, which we hadn't seen in ages. For a franchise, Steve Eisman kept saying it's all about the youth. Well, then let's start seeing some of that youth. And McClellan put 3 of them on the roster, which is like, thank you. And they've played pretty damn well. Now, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to screw up. But I would rather the Wings, if they miss the playoffs playing kids, or continue putting them in there, rather than missing the playoffs with a bunch of mid-level free agents that you sign for 2 or 3 years at $4 million a year.
I wanted to ask you guys about Sebastian Cossa. Is he ever going to come up again or not? Because I had Kevin Allen on, who covers the Red Wings for Detroit Hockey Now, and he goes, he told me, I think the Red Wings have they're kind of not so sure that Cossa is a long-term solution in net, because they really haven't had a franchise goalie in net since Chris Osgood or even Jimmy Howard. I'd say Jimmy Howard.
Yeah, he's disappointed down in Grand Rapids, and I think that's what he is not really. They always say goalies are late bloomers, but sooner or later you have to step up, and he has not done that in the AHL. I really have a feeling now they're putting the feeling the guy that may end up being the guy. I can't remember his name. The kid he stayed at MSU for 1 more year.
It's another kid. I can't remember his name either.
Augustine?
Yes, Augustine. Trey Augustine. I think he's now the new hotness, as they say. And Cossa might be old and busted. They use an old meme. I mean, the kid still could turn it around. But he has yet to really prove that he was worth the draft status. And now that he's been at Grand Rapids, he played, I think, all of last year and now this year. And he's, sooner or later, it's shit or get off the pot. Goalie, even late blooming goalie or not. And, it may end up being Augustine. But you're right. That's something we've harped about. I know Nick, Greg, and I have, about the Wings keep getting these journeyman, veteran, aging goalies as stopgaps, hoping for hoping for Cossa to step up. And here we are, again, signing a free agent for a year or 2. I mean,
they also did some weird things with Cossa last year, and I don't know. I think it was a Lalone thing, but I can't be sure. He was going to start his first game, like it was in the fall of last year, and they didn't have him start in the first period. They want him to acclimate, so they had one of the other guys start.
Yeah, I saw that
using an opener.
And
baseball.
Yeah, I saw that in Buffalo where they were playing the Sabres, and they decided to put him in the second period. He played in the second and third period of that game.
And everybody was like, what is this? Like, it made no sense whatsoever. It's like, if he's going to freak out being in net, he's going to freak out in the first period as well as the second period. It doesn't really matter.
They got to stop babying him. It's basically now, to me, it's like this has got to be his last chance this year. He's either up with the Red Wings at some point this year, or they need to move on from him at the end of this year, in my opinion.
It's a legit question. You're right. Yeah, I mean, they've been waiting for this kid to step up, and he never really has. I mean, we were always sold on his elite traits and all this, but he's yet to really show that at a professional level. Even in the AHL. So yeah, I'm with you there. Sooner or later, he needs to step up, and it hasn't happened.
What's the mood of the media and the fan base in Detroit right now? Did they expect this team to be a playoff team, or are they still kind of leery about getting too attached to this team right now? Because it is still early in the year.
My feeling is that most from a fan perspective, it's always whatever happened in the near term is the way they feel now. So it's like a roller coaster. So now they're riding a 5-game winning streak. Like, maybe we'll get the playoffs. Like, all right, dude, you got another 70-some games to play. It's like, God knows what'll happen by then. And usually they tend to implode, if at least the last 2 or 3 years has been like if they survive February and March, right? Like right after the All-Star break. They go down in flames.
Honestly, I think, especially at least with the media, I think it's playoffs. They got to make the playoffs this year. They got it. Even if it's an 8 seed and they get bounced. They got to make the playoffs. That's really what it's come down to.
Steve Yzerman on the hot seat. Do you think after
he should be, but no
chance of him being on the hot seat?
No, I mean he's got whatever.
The Illich he's like he's like the better son. If they had to pick between Chris and Steve, they would pick Steve.
I think he's safe. Unfortunately, I think Harris is almost equally safe. So
it's just I'm just kind of looking at it like the Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars played for the Pistons, won 2 championships. I took over as GM and president. The Pistons did win a championship, and then at the end they got tired of it and fired Joe Dumars. And I'm just wondering if that same fate will happen to Steve Yzerman.
I think the problem with Dumars though was that Bill Davidson died.
Agreed.
And that really changed the entire arc of the Pistons franchise for over a decade. Because as we talked earlier about Karen, his wife, she wanted nothing to do with it, and essentially told Joe Dumars, your hands are tied because I'm trying to sell the franchise, so you cannot spend big money. That's how they ended up with Ben Gordon and Charlie Villanueva back in the day as free agents.
God.
So yeah. I don't think I would see that happening with the Illiches, though. They love, if anything, I bet you sooner or later Steve would get bumped up into some sort of president role or something like that. I don't ever see them firing.
Just like Jimmy,
I see him getting bumped out, but
just like Jimmy Davilano. Eventually, move him up to like senior vice president or something like that.
Exactly.
Kenny Holland. They did that with Kenny Holland too.
Yeah.
So, I could see that happening. I don't think they'll flat out fire him. And,
I just tell fans right now just to take one game at a time, and that's it, because you're right. There's still 77 games left. And injuries. Look at Patrick Kane. He's already out. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out, but he's not playing against Buffalo as well. And and Lucas Raymond, he missed a couple games too. So they also need to stay healthy. They have to have consistent goaltending. They need to stay healthy, and they need to have some kind of consistent scoring, not just Larkin and Raymond. They need other guys contributing.
Been an issue for years that they're top line heavy when it comes to scoring.
Yeah, well, and DeBrincat is like hot and cold. I mean, that guy's on extremes. I don't think he's gotten anywhere near his 40-goal sort of heights from the past. Larkin is actually kind of on fire right now.
He's stepped up his game so far. Yes, I agree.
I think Stevie had a talking to, or McClellan must have had a talking to with him. Larkin.
They had a come to Jesus meeting, as they say.
I mean, Larkin fizzled out last year. I think he was unusually looked drained last year. So,
well, he's never seen the playoffs. It's funny how Nick Lidstrom played his whole career in Detroit, 20 years, and played in the playoffs 20 years. Larkin's played his whole career in Detroit now 9 years, and he's never even played one playoff game.
He has been in the playoffs, actually, his rookie year.
Okay, 15, 16, you're right.
But, that's like 100 years ago at this point, right?
You're right, you're right.
Exactly. Yeah, it was the first round knockout. It wasn't even competitive.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the Wings. Yeah, essentially, the Lions got to make a run to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure they're going to do it, but they got the talent to make a run to the Super Bowl. The Wings and the Pistons make the playoffs. Pistons, let's win a series. Rings just get to the goddamn playoffs. And the Tigers, again, it's I'm with you there. They're at the point now where they got to invest in some bats and stuff, and who knows what's going to happen when with the. Well, let me ask you this, Chris: would you trade if you don't think you're going to be able to sign Skubal? Would you trade him now, or would you make another run with him, let him walk, and then just get the compensation of a draft pick?
I would bring him back and see how the team is doing in July. And if the team is struggling or there's no chance of them having a playoff run, I would trade him. I personally think Skudrow's done. Scott Boras I don't believe in giving pitchers 10, 15-year contracts. I believe Skudrow's gone.
That's scary. It really is.
I believe Skudrow will end up with the Dodgers, Boston, or the Yankees. So if Skudrow's not going to stay there long term, they at the latest they need to trade him by July. Yeah. And by the way, Toronto's got a free agent, and I don't think they're going to resign Bo Bichette, who's going to play in the World Series. He's come off a knee injury. That's somebody the Detroit Tigers could use. I know Javier Baez is good defensively in that, but to get a Bo Bichette there would tell the fan base and the media that, hey, we're serious about competing for a World Series team, getting someone like Bo Bichette. But unfortunately, I don't even think they're going to even attempt to try to offer him a contract, in my opinion.
He'd be the type of bat that would really help this team. You're right about that.
Oh, don't forget Bregman. Like, as soon as the Tigers were bounced for the playoffs.
He's going to go to free agency again, and he would be a perfect fit for this team, especially as the third baseman.
I'm shocked why he wouldn't want to stay in Boston, because Boston's a team that's on the up and up, in my opinion.
Is Boras his agent? I think he is.
You might be right on that.
At this point, when you see guys with those kind of contracts, yeah.
But unfortunately, Skudrow will not be a Detroit Tiger past, I think, July 2026. I think July 2026 he'll be gone.
Yeah, I don't see. I would not, because it's going to take. They're saying what? They're probably saying $400 million or something like that. And there was talk here in Detroit. It was probably leaked by Boros or someone wanted it out there that the Tigers had offered, I think, before the 2024 season, a 4-year, $100 million contract. So $25 million a year. So, and obviously he did not want anything to do with that, Boros. So it really sounds like they're angling towards that $40 million a year contract, because they were saying they're hundreds of millions apart. So if they're that, and it's not like the Tigers have extended guys in the past. I mean, they did it with Justin Verlander. They gave him a huge extension back in the day. At least, we're talking 12 years ago or something like that, with a $180 million extension. They gave Cabrera that very ill-advised extension because Ilitch wanted him to retire in Detroit. So they do have a history of doing it. But that was, like you said, it was a different regime as well with Mike Ilitch. So
Chris Ilitch is not his dad. I can tell you that.
Yeah, he's not his dad. We've all learned that. That's for damn sure.
So, and I don't know what's going to happen with Skubal, but I'm going to predict whatever happens, Scott Harris will have made a mistake.
Well, look at the trade.
The decision he makes, it's the wrong one. That's right.
Okay. Exactly.
Gotta ask you guys this: who's the worst GM in Detroit sports history? Is it Matt Millen or Al Avila?
Russ Thomas.
Yeah, I could argue Russ Thomas, who was William Clay Ford's drinking buddy in the 60s and 70s and into about the mid 80s. And that era of Russ Thomas is where the Lions always, their first round pick always held out. They actually lost several first round picks to the AFL because they didn't want to pay them. Like John Hadel was a big one, for example. Floyd Biletnikoff was another one. Was another one that the Lions drafted, but they wouldn't pay him. Russ Thomas. So of that era, I would say Russ Thomas, and then I would probably go. Don't forget Ned Harkness with the Red Wings of the Dead Things era. In the 70s, he was
Troy Weaver. Weaver.
Yeah.
He was
Troy Weaver.
Yeah, Troy Weaver's another one.
Randy you might even argue Jack Adams and his stupid trades in the late 50s and the 60s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
obviously, with the Tigers, you had Randy Smith in the early 2000s, who made the Juan Gonzalez trade that blew up, that never took the Tigers anywhere, because they wanted to have a name player in that new stadium. And then, of course, Matt Millen was even Millen knew he was in over his head. He admits it to this day that he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So yeah, the history of Detroit sports is littered with some pretty god awful general managers. Honestly, say what you will about Harris, at least they're a playoff team right now. And obviously Brad Holmes is coming off as a genius. And Iserman, he's got a track record. For now, I'll put it that he's got a track record of being a good one. And Pistons GM was it Trajan Langdon. Yeah.
Too soon to say with him.
Yeah,
agree.
It's too soon to say. Turnaround says volumes, and it does sound like he's willing to make the gutty decisions, as we were seeing with the with not extending Duran and Ivy. So, but yeah, the jury's out. But right now, it's Holmes and a runaway for the most part. So
totally agree with you,
Chris. We unofficially have an award for the worst GM. Al, if you remember, 2 years ago, we came up with the Russie Award.
Yes, that's right.
Which is in honor of Russ Thomas and for front office incompetence. And the initial winner of that was Troy Weaver. And the front runner this year is Scott Harris.
Yeah.
I think this offseason is critical to the Tigers. If they do nothing in free agency and let Scudro go for nothing, they're going to lose this fan base pretty quickly. I can see them end up being like the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Oh yeah, the way that the second half went, specifically September, really soured the fan base, and at the very least, even though winning a playoff round did buy them a little bit of time, or at least a little bit of grace, so to speak. But if they had not won that first playoff round, it would be a lot worse right now. I think beating Cleveland, who has been a dagger in the Tigers side for a very long time, that kind of helped soothe people who kind of forgot what happened in September. But watching that 15-inning game, oh my God, that brought back so many, a lot of the bad stuff came flooding back. But watching that team struggle offensively, and then you're bringing out Tommy Canley in the 15th inning, because essentially what else are you going to do at that point, I guess? But
well,
we were texting during that game, the three of us, towards the end, and I think at that point it was like, I don't care who wins. I just want the game to end. I can't handle this anymore. It was absolutely ridiculous how that game ended up going.
It's funny, the Tigers let Seattle hang around in that fifth game.
And they should have won that game in regulation. You're right.
And last night, Seattle was up 3-1 in the bottom of the seventh in Toronto. Yeah. They had the game in control, and they had runners at second and third with one out, and they couldn't get that knockout punch. Seattle's offense reminds me of the Tigers. It's either home run, or strikeout. And that's why they lost to the Jays, because the Jays, they got walk, they got a base hit, and then George Springer, whether you like him or not, he came through in the clutch. He's a playoff performer, and that's something that Seattle has some good players, but when you all I'm going to say is when you let a team hang around in a playoff game, you're usually going to regret it at the end, and that's what happened to Seattle.
Well, I think Toronto, just in general, demonstrated that if you have hitting, you can overcome a lot of things. And Toronto is just a matter of time. Like you said, if you let them hang around, Toronto's going to score. Seattle really is like the Tigers. Their pitching is pretty good and, might be their strength. Their hitters, they may get a home run and but otherwise, it's just like a lot of
offenses, two guys in the big dumper and Rodriguez.
Yeah, and that was it. And and unless they hit the home runs, they can't manufacture runs. The Blue Jays, whether you like them or not, they get guys on base and they can get them home. They can beat you with small ball and they can get runners over. Seattle and Detroit, they rely too much on the home run ball. Same with the Yankees too.
Yeah.
Same with the Yankees.
I think if you look at like Game 5 between the Tigers and the Mariners, you'll see like batter number 2 through batter number I think it's like 7 or something. 6.
Yeah, I think it's 2 through 6.
They were like 0 and 20 something. It was stupid. You might as well put in one of the utility hitters, one of the utility guys in place of Torkelson, because Torkelson wasn't doing shit.
The only one that was consistent for
about the slight change in approach. Who changed their approach in the playoffs was Javi Baez.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, he wasn't nearly as free swinging as he was. Javi Baez, and for that matter, Carpenter as well. Because
I was going to mention him. Yeah,
he didn't walk in the regular season. He was a walking fiend in the playoffs because they realized the game's a little bit different now.
Yep.
Sometimes you just need to advance the runner over, or you need to hit the ball through the hole rather than swinging for the fences. I mean, I'm not a fan of small ball. I hate bunting and things like that, but there is a time and place, and oftentimes that time and place is late in a playoff game, and too many guys aren't capable of changing their at bats, as we saw with Riley Green.
Absolutely, and him and Torkelson strike out way too much, and they need to hire a hitting coach there to try to get more contact out of them. So,
well, Harris did say they want to get owned at the strike zone, which is
they want to own the strike zone, but
they got owned at the strike zone.
Right? Yeah.
It's not just fly outs or ground outs; it's fucking strikeouts. It's just like
Since we're talking about baseball, Blue Jays, Dodgers, even though I'm in Ontario, I'm still picking the Dodgers to repeat as World Series champion. How do you guys see this series going out from your perspectives?
Personal perspective, I prefer the Blue Jays. They are always my number 2 team if the Tigers never made it. But the Dodgers look damn strong so far. And Ohtani's like a freak of nature this year. If he has one more games like that one game he had, or that last game against the Brewers, shit.
That was absolutely insane. 6 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, and 3 home runs. That's Babe Ruth is like, I couldn't do that.
No, I agree. He's special. He's a special player.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with Nick. I mean, heart wants the Blue Jays, head says the Dodgers, specifically, the Ohtani. That he's as bad. Well, it's funny. Ohtani was awful in the divisional series. I mean, I think he hit. He was like 1 for 20 or something like that with like 10 strikeouts. Then all of a sudden he flipped a switch and they could not get him out in the championship series. But yeah, I'm with you. It's the Dodgers. They're just too good. And for all the money they're spending, they're getting their money's worth. I saw something this past week saying that the Dodgers, between ticket sales and endorsements and TV money and blah blah blah, have pretty much already covered Shohei Ohtani's contract.
Yep,
You know?
I saw that. Yep. And whether
Yeah.
you like the Dodgers or not, I know a lot of fans and teams don't like them, but you know what? They're committed to winning. They're committing to putting money into their product. And a lot of major league teams, they want to make a profit, but they don't give a shit about winning, in my opinion. And I think the Tigers are kind of on that list right now, unless something happens in the offseason.
Yeah, they're like, prove us otherwise at this point. Yeah, you're right about that. All right, guys, we're pushing almost an hour and a half, so we should probably start wrapping things up. So I guess, Chris, if you want, let everybody know again where they want to find you on social media and how they'll get your podcast.
Yes, my main one is live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. It is on every major platform, including YouTube. My YouTube channel is Chris Pomay, live with CDP Talk Show on YouTube. I'm on TikTok at Chris Pomay, Blue Sky Social at live with CDP 19. I'm on Twitter, X, Facebook. Just Google my name, Chris Pomay, and you'll see me pop up there as well. I'm on pretty well every platform except Snapchat. And my next show is going to be tomorrow. And then Thursday, I have Christine Lisi from ESPN Radio on to preview the World Series between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays as well. And she's a huge Bills fan, so I'm going to have to razz her about the Bills struggling and Josh Allen.
And
Nick, let everybody know how they can find you on social media.
Yep, probably the only one related to sports. I thinned out what I include here under my name. It's at Nick Milanovich, and this is on Twitter. So that's where I'll normally talk about sports. My other social media platforms are for other purposes. So.
If you want to see carving, look them up on the other services. I'll put it that way. I'm on Blue Sky as Albeat at Blue Sky, but I hardly ever use it. But regardless of that, I appreciate everybody who listens to the show. Please like, share, and subscribe. We would much appreciate it. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we're available pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including places like Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Radio Public, Ghana. We live stream every show. Every show goes to both YouTube and Twitch. YouTube is pretty much there for posterity. Everything on Twitch is only there for about 2 or 3 weeks because that's the nature of that beast. Also, we got to give a shout out to Greg to his Substack, the Greg Eno Substack, Out of Bounds. Please subscribe to his weekly column on Substack. It was in my email, but I didn't get a chance to read it. I forgot. I don't even know what he wrote about today. So I'm sure.
It was about Panay Sewell.
Yes, Sewell.
A fantastic article.
Yep. Yeah, I'll have to read that after the show as I'm waiting for the podcast to upload to all these places I just described. So I'll have to check that out then. So Chris, first off, thank you so much again for taking the time out of your obviously busy schedule to talk sports with us for an hour and a half. I really appreciate it.
Well,
and for filling me in on what's going on in the CFL, I am still upset about that.
Well, maybe I could be your CFL insider. And
there we go.
I want to thank Greg for having me on here as a co-host.
Yes.
And hopefully maybe I can come back on again as a guest and preview the Eagles-Lions game on Sunday Night Football on Sunday, November 16th.
We might be able to do something with that. We'll have to talk about that.
To me, that's the game I get circled.
Or a Grey Cup preview as well. So
yes, the Grey Cup is November 16th too, by the way.
Yeah.
Sunday, November 16th, same day as the Eagles and Lions.
Oh, so, man, you're going to be like hungover the next day.
So my team's out of it. The Toronto Argonauts, who won the Grey Cup last year, they had too many injuries, roster changes. You know what? In the CFL, NFL, when you win a championship, it's hard the next year because you're a target, and also injuries. And also when you win a championship, and the Lions are going to find this out one year, when the Lions do win a Super Bowl, they're going to have a lot of players leave for other teams because everybody wants your players when you're an successful organization.
Yeah, we're not used to that as Lions fans.
Yeah, man, I hope to have that problem. All right, let's I think we're about ready to wrap things up. So I think it's time to go. So until this time, about 2 weeks from now, we'll get the dates settled up and we'll figure out where we're going. And hopefully Greg will be back then. This is Al Beaton saying good evening, good luck, aloha, along with Chris Pomay. And
thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, all right, thank you. And of course, Nick Milanovich.
Good night, guys.
We'll
Good
see you
night.
soon.
Go Dodgers.